Xiaomi Mi 11X hands-on review. But before we start, please support us by pressing the like and subscribe buttons, so that we can continue to provide the latest information about gadgets and technology. Also turn on the bell button to get the latest updates. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you. The Mi 11X is the latest premium mid-range offering from Xiaomi in India. It's part of a series of 2 devices, the other being the Mi 11X Pro, which also launched alongside last week. The Mi 11X is essentially a rebranded Redmi K40 or Poco F3 for the Indian market. The 3 phones are identical to each other save for the name printed on their backs. The reason it's been renamed to Mi 11X in India is likely because the Redmi name is more synonymous with budget devices, and the Poco branding these days is being reserved for lower mid-range models. Since this model is on the pricier side for Xiaomi in India, it gets the more premium Mi branding. Xiaomi Mi 11X specs at a glance. Body, 163.7 by 76.4 by 7. 8mm, 196 grams. Glass front, Gorilla Glass 5, glass back, Gorilla Glass 5, plastic frame. Display, 6.67 inches Super AMOLED, 120 Hz, HDR10+, 1300 nits, peak, 1080 by 2400 px resolution, 20:9 aspect ratio, 395p. Chipset, Qualcomm SM8250AC Snapdragon 875G, 7nm, octa-core, 1x3. 2 GHz Creo 585 and 3x2. 42 GHz Creo 585 and 4x1. 80 GHz Creo 585, Adreno 650. Memory, 128 GB 6 GB RAM, 128 GB 8 GB RAM, UFS 3.1. OS/software, Android 11, MIUI 12. Rear camera, wide, main, 48MP, f/1.8, 26mm, half an inch, 0.8 micrometers, PAF, ultra-wide angle, 8MP, f/2.2, 119, macro, 5MP, f/2.4, 50mm, 1/5.0, 1.12 micrometers. Front camera, 20MP, f/2.5, wide, 1/3.4, 0.8 micrometers. Video capture, rear camera, 4K at 30 fps, 1080p at 30/60/120/240/960 fps, gyro ICE, front camera, 1080p at 30 fps, 720p at 120 fps. Battery, 4520 mAh, fast charging 33 watts. Miscellaneous, fingerprint reader, side mounted, infrared port. However, true to Xiaomi ethos, the Mi 11X is very well spec'd for the price, which starts at 29,999 Indian rupees, $400. You get the Qualcomm Snapdragon 870 chipset, a 120Hz AMOLED display, triple rear camera, 4520 mAh battery, and 33 watts fast charging. Compared to the OnePlus 9R, which packs a similar feature set, the Mi 11X is a cool 10,000 Indian rupees, $135, cheaper. Of course, not everything can be evaluated on paper, and some things have to be tried in person. So we spent a week with the Mi 11X, and this is what we found. Unboxing. The Mi 11X comes with a fairly standard retail bundle, consisting of the phone, a 33 watts fast charger, a USB 2.0 cable, and a soft silicone case. There's also a USB-C to 3.5mm adapter, not pictured here. Design. The Mi 11X is a reasonably attractive phone. It features all the trappings of a modern smartphone, such as thin bezels, a small notch, a glossy glass back, and a sizable camera assembly on the back. The phone comes in 3 colors, cosmic black, lunar white, and celestial silver. The silver has a unique finish that makes it shift hues depending upon the angle of the light hitting it. The Mi 11X is also a fairly large smartphone. At 196 grams, it's also not particularly light. However, at just 7.8mm, the phone is quite thin, making it still relatively easy to use and carry. The front of the phone has fairly thin bezels with aggressively curved corners. The camera hole at the top is centered and remarkably small. However, Xiaomi has put a silver reflective ring around the lens, like on some Samsung phones, which brings undue attention towards the camera and defeats the purpose of having a small, discreet cutout. The sides of the phone are made out of plastic and have a two-tone finish. Most of the sides have a matte finish, but there's a hint of gloss running around the edges, and the top and bottom sides are entirely glossy. The right side of the phone houses the power button and the volume button. The power button also doubles as a fingerprint sensor, although it's not the usual flat buttons we see that have this functionality. The button on the Mi 11X looks like a standard button with a raised design. The top of the phone houses grills for the loudspeaker, which also doubles as the earpiece. The phone does have an extremely thin grill facing the front, but the actual speaker seems to be somewhere inside the phone and not near where the grills are. Also on top is the IR blaster. On the bottom is a dual SIM tray on the left, a USB-C 2.0 port in the middle, and the other loudspeaker on the right. The back of the phone is made out of the same Gorilla Glass 5 as the front. Our Cosmic Black variant didn't have any fancy pattern, just a glossy layer with a mirror finish that has an extreme affinity for fingerprints. The camera assembly in the corner has the triple lens system with a third microphone and LED flash. The camera bump on this isn't as pronounced, but it's enough to rock the phone on a hard surface. The build quality of the phone is unremarkable. The plastic frame isn't particularly offensive, but it also doesn't feel great to touch. The IP53 rating is also one of the barest minimum ratings you can get, and while it's better than no protection at all, it also doesn't guarantee much. Despite that, the phone still feels reasonably premium and well worth the asking price. Display. The Mi 11X has a 6.67-inch, 2400 by 1800 resolution AMOLED display. The display supports a maximum refresh rate of 120 Hz and HDR, although it's only an 8-bit panel. Under the MIUI display settings, the user has the option to change the color calibration. By default, the display is set to produce oversaturated, vivid colors and can also modulate the contrast under bright sunlight for better visibility. You can optionally change it to the original color preset, which will set the display to the correct color profile for the currently viewed content. You can also dig deeper and set the color space, color temperature, RGB values, contrast, gamma, hue, and saturation manually. This is a fairly elaborate set of options and can be useful if you intend to perform a manual calibration in the future, but you will need additional hardware to verify your results. The color performance in the original color preset is excellent, and the display looked great with a variety of content. Because it adjusts the color space based on the content, the display is always using the correct color profile, and so everything largely looks as it should. While we didn't test this particular unit for color calibration, you can check out our Poco F3 review for stats on the color performance. The display on the Mi 11X can get reasonably bright both indoors and outdoors. However, the issue with the display is not whether it can get bright but rather if it will stay that way. The highest brightness level that you can manually set cannot be sustained by the display for more than a short amount of time. If you are indoors in a relatively cool environment, you can sustain the maximum brightness for a few minutes, but eventually, the display will drop brightness when it gets warm. If you are outdoors under the sun, it takes just a few seconds for the phone to immediately drop the brightness by a serious amount, making it hard to see, especially if you are trying to use the camera. Similarly, if you are playing games, the brightness drops significantly when the phone starts heating up, and then it drops again when it gets even hotter. By the end of it, you can barely see what's happening on the screen, even if you are indoors.
Thanks for watching. Drop a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to watch more videos like this.